Welcome to the Defense and Aerospace Report. I'm Vago Muradian here at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in downtown Washington, D.C. at the conclusion of a fascinating space panel where we had 4 members of Congress, including the chairman of the Strategic Forces Subcommittee of the House Armed Services Committee, Chairman Mike Rogers here speaking. And we're now talking to Tom Karako, who is the missile defense man here at CSIS, and also you were on the last panel discussion where we're going to be talking to some of the other panelists, including doctors, Jamie Morin and Bill LaPlante. But what I wanted to ask you, Tom, is how do you regard the administration's budget proposal when it comes to missile defense? Obviously, you're here, you're a strong advocate for a strong missile defenses, both national as well as theater. Talk to us a little bit about what this budget request has in it. What's the good news? What's the somewhat less good news from your standpoint?
Right, so the overall request for missile defense is, it's got a high top line. It's $12.9 billion, 9.9 for the Missile Defense Agency and 3 in the Army and the Navy for some procurement and RDT&E. But you know, that's a big number. But when you start digging into what exactly is going on there, I think a couple trends present themselves. One, that what you really see here is a continuation of something that you saw last year, and that is a high emphasis on procurement. In other words, buying more of the same of our existing interceptors. Now that's a good thing, right? We want to have more capacity, and as Admiral Searing, the former head of the Missile Defense Agency, noted a couple years ago, where we have been taking risk lately is on procurement. And so we're kind of playing catch up right now to buy more PAC-3 interceptors, GBIs, standard missiles, THAADs, et cetera. The difficulty, and this is always a trade-off, always a pie here and how to divide it, is that while we're buying more capacity, what seems to be getting, I would say, relatively short shrift are the advanced capabilities. And so even though we know that at our current pace, the threat's kind of outpacing us, we're kind of doing more of the same, and that's necessary but not sufficient. And so it's the directed energy stuff, it's the volume kill, multiple kill stuff, multiple kill vehicle, but I think especially perhaps the single most important muscle movement that is yet to take place is actually going forward with fielding a space sensor layer for not merely missile warning, but tracking and discrimination. So that needs to be done still.
As you pointed out, these are the latest series of paper satellites that have been discussed by the latest administration. How significant is that piece of it? Because if you look at the missile warning satellites that we have up there, they're really Cold War technology.
Well, they're Cold War technology, bearing in mind that during the Cold War we were treaty prohibited from doing this mission. And so they are tailored to missile warning, telling you it's coming in your general direction, but not to missile defense, being able to get fire control quality data to go exactly where you need to go kill it before it gets to you. And so it served the deterrence mission, but not so much the defense side. And so having said that, the past 5 administrations have all had a lower orbit, SBIRS low or something else that was kind of looking sideways, not merely down, but looking sideways to be able to get a different kind of look, not merely radars looking up or GEO looking way down, but something look sideways to kind of look at the heat and electrical optical and be able to guide things better. And so everybody's had that on paper, but it's not yet been fielded, and I think now certainly is the time when you have a no-kidding ICBM from North Korea, but also as we begin to pivot away from strictly ballistic threats and towards the great power competition. So when you get to the hypersonic boost glide vehicle, radars, looking in one particular direction is not going to cut it when these things can go around you.
That's right, and there was a lot of conversation. We'll be talking to both Jamie and Bill about that hypersonic threat a little bit. Let me ask you about current missile defenses. Obviously, the focus is in North Korea because of the Olympics. There was a little bit of a rapprochement between North and South. It remains to be seen how things are going to go forward. Talk to us a little bit, though, about concerns people have that the current missile defense architecture that we have is simply not up to the task. There are a lot of folks who've been commenting increasingly on this and saying, hey, look, we don't want to alarm the American people, but there are distinct limitations on the system that as it exists. Talk to us a little bit about that. Is the system up to snuff, and what are some of the things that have to happen to bring it up to snuff if it's not?
Yeah, so when you talk about the system and I think folks the mind goes to especially the GMD and Homeland Missile Defense. And you know, on the one hand, I think it's fair to say that the warfighter has a high degree of confidence in what's deployed today. What is deployed today, by the way, the configurations of the kill vehicle has evolved over time. And so when people kind of rattle off the 10 out of 18 intercept test record, you know, there's actually been a lot of fixes along the way. And the last, in terms of what's actually in the ground today in the silos, the system is 5 out of 6 for its intercept rate. So that's good. And the last two, of course, were both successful for GMD. Having said that, notwithstanding those fixes and those band-aids that have been put on, the kill vehicles in the ground today are essentially an advanced prototype that really kind of dated from the 1990s technology. It's good that we can do it with 1990s technology, but we got to get that design turn that reduces the cost and increases the reliability of the kill vehicle, and that's what the redesigned kill vehicle program is. It's going forward. It needs to keep going forward. That will, you know, reduce the cost and increase the lethality of the additional GBIs, by the way, that we're going to be buying, the 20 more for Greeley in the 2023 timeframe. So that's a good thing. It's going to keep getting better, but then looking just over the horizon too, we need space sensors to tell them where to go more effectively, so you can shoot fewer at a given threat, and then likewise you might think about layers, putting them in different places than just doing the entire mission from Alaska, in terms of an underlay or something like that as well.
And talk to us about hypersonics a little bit. What are the structural and architectural changes that have to happen to be able to intercept this? I mean, we've played around a little bit in hypersonics, but the Chinese have really put a goal on it, and there are folks who are concerned that the Chinese have outpaced the United States in developments in this field. Talk to us a little bit about the changes that have to happen to the architecture in order to be able to deal with this new threat.
Yeah, there's lots of hypersonic things, but usually when people are talking about this, they're kind of alluding to the not the ballistic, but the boost glide vehicle kind of thing that's kind of skimming across the top of the atmosphere. And by the way, it's skimming below where our GBIs can engage. They're strictly exo-atmospheric, very high vacuum of space, not aerodynamic kind of thing.
And that's ground-based interceptor for GBI for our audience.
That's our homeland missile defense. And so they're flying under the engagement window of that, and they're kind of flying above, or at least towards the higher end of some of our other things, other defenses. And so they've kind of developed this to kind of go between, to kind of attack the gaps and seams of our architecture. So we got to figure out how to attack that. First, we have to see it. You can't kill anything you can't see, and that's where the space sensors comes in again. And then also perhaps adapting some of our existing high endo kind of interceptors to go after that.
Because the altitude bracket is above 100 and below 300, as Bob Work was famously quoted as saying, you know, the Chinese looked at that space and said, hey, we're going to target it. Tom, thanks very much. Always a pleasure to talk to you, and
Likewise.
Look forward to getting another update from you soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.